What if the most underrated American supercar of the 90s finally got the second act it always deserved? Welcome back to Prime Car Culture, and before we go any further, let's be completely transparent. What a modern 2027 Callaway C12 could look like if Reeves Callaway's legendary Le Mans-bred road car returned with today's technology, today's materials, and today's design language. So sit back, because we're about to reimagine an American legend from the ground up. Back in 1998, Callaway built barely 20 of these road cars, a 2-meter-wide carbon Kevlar-bodied machine designed to satisfy GT2 regulations at Le Mans. A car so exclusive most enthusiasts never even got to see one in person, let alone hear that naturally aspirated V8 come alive on a back road. And that rarity, that mystique, is exactly what makes this thought experiment so much fun to build today. Picture this silhouette rolling out of a private workshop somewhere in Connecticut, low, wide, and unmistakably purposeful, a shape that refuses to whisper when it can roar, and that's exactly the energy this imagined C12 carries from every single angle. We start right where every great performance car earns its first impression, the face. This concept front grille is imagined as a wide, deep-set opening, sculpted in gloss black mesh, drawing cool air straight into a heart we'll get to very soon, with sharp horizontal fins that echo the original C12's aggressive stance while feeling completely at home in 2027. The proportions are wider than a standard Corvette platform, just like the original 90s C12, which was built a hair under 2 meters wide to satisfy Le Mans GT2 regulations. And this imagined successor leans into that heritage unapologetically, because width was never just a rule to follow. It was a statement about grip, stability, and intent. Moving up from that grille, the headlights on this concept are envisioned as slim, razor-edged units using full matrix LED technology, angled aggressively into the front fascia, so the car looks like it's already leaning into a corner, even while parked in a showroom. And each lighting cluster is imagined with a crystalline internal structure that catches light like cut glass, giving the entire nose a jewel-like precision that modern supercars are known for. Right beside those main lights, the daytime running lights are imagined as a thin, glowing signature line, a single uninterrupted ribbon of light that traces the edge of each headlamp housing, instantly recognizable even from 2 blocks away. A lighting fingerprint designed purely so that at a glance, in a sea of traffic, you would know exactly which car just passed you. Now let's talk about what actually puts the power down: the wheels. This imagined C12 concept rides on forged alloy wheels, 20 inches up front and 21 out back, finished in a satin gunmetal with exposed carbon fiber spokes bridging the hub to the rim. A design language that borrows from motorsport aesthetics while keeping enough negative space to show off massive imagined carbon ceramic brake calipers glowing red behind them, because on a car built around a racing bloodline, the wheels were never going to be an afterthought. Walking along that wide flank, the door handles on this concept are imagined as flush-mounted, aerodynamic units that sit nearly invisible against the bodywork until you approach with the key, at which point they extend outward with a smooth mechanical motion. A small but deliberate detail that keeps the silhouette clean at speed while still feeling special every single time you reach for the door. Just above that, the side mirrors are imagined slim and aerodynamically sculpted, mounted low on the door rather than high on the pillar, a nod straight back to the original C12's motorsport-inspired stance. And each housing on this concept could integrate a discrete camera module alongside the traditional glass, blending old-school analog feedback with a thoroughly modern approach to visibility. Now swing around to the rear, because this is where a lot of modern performance cars either seal the deal or lose the room, and this concept absolutely seals it. The taillights are imagined as a single, full-width light bar, a thin ribbon of red LED sequencing that stretches from corner to corner of the rear fascia, splitting only where the imagined center-mounted brand emblem sits. And when this thing pulls away from a stoplight, that glowing bar is the last thing anyone behind you is going to remember. Just beneath that dramatic light signature, the exhaust setup on this concept is imagined as a quad outlet arrangement, 2 larger center exit pipes flanked by 2 smaller outer pipes, finished in a dark titanium weave that hints at the kind of naturally aspirated, high-revving soundtrack the original supernatural V8 engines were famous for, because any imagined revival of this nameplate has to honor that acoustic signature above almost everything else. And right at the heart of that rear fascia, the brand emblem is imagined as a redesigned Callaway badge, a sharpened, more geometric take on the classic script logo, finished in brushed metal so it catches light differently depending on the angle you're viewing it from. A small detail, but on a car, this focused, small details are the whole point. Now let's step inside, because a cabin like this deserves just as much attention as anything happening under the skin. Sliding into the driver's seat of this imagined C12, the dashboard wide view reveals a cockpit that leans driver-focused without feeling cold or overly digital. A horizontal architecture wrapped in soft-touch materials, with a visible carbon fiber weave running the width of the dash, bridging the two sides of the cabin into one continuous, purposeful design statement. Grip the steering wheel on this concept and you'll notice a flat-bottom design, wrapped in perforated leather with contrast stitching, thick enough in the rim to feel serious, but never so bulky that it gets in the way of quick, precise inputs. Exactly the kind of wheel you'd expect on something with genuine motorsport DNA. Right behind that wheel, the digital instrument cluster is imagined as a fully reconfigurable display, capable of switching between a clean touring layout and a stripped-down track mode that pushes the tachometer front and center, shift lights blazing across the top edge as the needle climbs toward redline. Just to the right of that cluster, the infotainment screen is envisioned as a slightly angled, floating touchscreen, integrated seamlessly into the dash rather than looking bolted on as an afterthought, running a simplified interface so the driver's attention stays exactly where it should, on the road ahead. Down at the center console, this concept imagines a raised, driver-oriented layout, milled aluminum switchgear for drive modes and suspension settings, positioned exactly where your hand naturally falls. Because, in a car built around a racing philosophy, you shouldn't have to hunt for the controls that matter. Right beside that console sits the gear shifter, and rather than following the industry trend toward tiny rotary dials or push-button setups, this concept imagines a mechanical-feeling shifter with a knurled metal top, a tactile, satisfying piece of hardware that rewards a deliberate hand, honoring the original C12's 6-speed manual heritage, even in an era leaning heavily toward paddle shift dominance. The front seats in this imagined build are deep, heavily bolstered performance buckets, trimmed in a mix of leather and Alcantara, with visible perforation patterns and integrated headrests that echo classic racing seat silhouettes, seats designed to hold you firmly in place the moment this thing tips into a corner. As the sun goes down, and this concept sits parked under city lights, the ambient lighting comes alive, a subtle glow tracing the door panels, the lower dash, and the footwells in a customizable palette, soft enough to never distract, but present enough to completely transform the mood of the cabin once night falls, turning a purposeful daytime cockpit into something that feels almost cinematic after dark. Above all of that, this concept imagines a full-length sunroof, sliding open smoothly to let in both light and sound, a feature the original 90s C12 never offered, but one that feels entirely appropriate for a modern reinterpretation built as much for open road touring as for track days. Running your hand along the door panels, this concept imagines a layered material approach, soft leather up top, transitioning into brushed aluminum trim, lower down, with visible, hand-finished stitching tracing every seam, the kind of stitching pattern that signals real craftsmanship rather than something stamped out on an assembly line, a deliberate callback to the original C12's status as a boutique, hand-built machine, rather than a mass-produced sports car. And now, the part every enthusiast has been waiting for, what's actually imagined to live under that long, sculpted hood. Popping open the engine bay on this concept reveals a naturally aspirated V8 layout, positioned low and set back toward the cockpit for a more balanced front-to-rear weight distribution, wrapped in exposed carbon fiber engine covers that leave just enough of the architecture visible to remind you exactly what kind of machine you're standing in front of. This imagined power plant draws a direct spiritual line back to Callaway's legendary supernatural engine program, the same high-revving, naturally aspirated philosophy that powered the original road-going C12 and its Le Mans spec C12.R racing sibling, a philosophy this concept refuses to abandon in favor of turbocharging alone, because some characteristics are simply too important to lose in translation. Underneath that imagined engine, a lightweight chassis structure is envisioned borrowing the balanced, transaxle-based layout of its C5 Corvette-based ancestor, paired with a modern coilover suspension system, adjustable dampers, and a carbon fiber undertray designed to manage airflow beneath the car just as aggressively as the bodywork manages it above. Because in this concept, aerodynamics were never meant to be an afterthought, bolted on at the end. They're baked into the very shape of the car from the very first sketch. Leaning in for a closer look at the engine itself, this concept imagines forged internals, a dry sump lubrication system borrowed straight from motorsport practice, and a throttle response tuned to reward high-rev commitment rather than low-end turbo lag, the kind of engineering approach that turns every full throttle pull into an event rather than just a number on a spec sheet. And that, right there, is our imagined vision of what a 2027 Callaway C12 could look like if this legendary nameplate ever came roaring back, a tribute built from respect for where it came from, and excitement for where modern engineering could take it. Once again, to be completely clear, this is a concept, a fan-made reimagining, not an official Callaway product. and we built it purely to celebrate one of the most overlooked American supercars in automotive history. If you enjoyed reimagining this legend with us, smash that subscribe button, drop a comment telling us which discontinued or forgotten car you'd want Prime Car Culture to reimagine next, and hit the like button if you genuinely want to see this concept become reality. Thanks for riding along with us today. This has been Prime Car Culture, and we'll see you in the next one.